You ever notice how the man who doesn't chase, the one who moves in silence, stays focused on his grind, isn't always available, somehow gets all the attention? It's not luck, it's not charm, it's energy. See, women are drawn to presence, not pressure. And the second a man detaches, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity, everything starts to shift. He stops overextending and they start leaning in. He stops chasing and now they're curious. Why? Because most men fold under emotion, under silence, under space. But the man who can sit with it all and still stay focused, that man becomes rare. That man becomes valuable. We live in a world where everyone's begging for attention, addicted to validation, constantly proving their worth. But the truth is this: the more detached you are from needing something, the more power you hold over it. Not in a controlling way, in a magnetic way. And when it comes to women, nothing is more attractive than a man who doesn't need them to feel whole. A man who chooses, not chases. That's where the game changes. That's where the standard is born. And tonight, we're going to talk about that man. Detachment is power. Not in the sense of being cold, emotionless, or dismissive, but in the sense of control. Control over your reactions, your attention, and your emotional investment. When a man is detached, he's centered. He's not overextended trying to gain someone's approval or love. He's not looking outside himself for validation. That kind of energy is powerful. It sends a signal without saying a word. I want you, but I don't need you. In the world of attraction, neediness repels. Women can feel when a man is too available, too eager, too emotionally invested too early. It comes off as desperate, and desperation is the opposite of confidence. Detachment, on the other hand, is rooted in self-worth. It shows that a man has standards, patience, and a deep relationship with himself before anyone else. That's what creates the magnetic pull. But women aren't just attracted to a man's looks or status, they attracted to how a man makes them feel. A detached man creates tension, mystery, and a sense of challenge. That's not manipulation, it's alignment. He's not playing games, he's just not participating in them. He's not chasing after temporary highs or short-term validation because he's locked into something bigger, his mission. And when a man's energy is invested in his purpose instead of being consumed by someone else, women feel that gravitational pull. It's quiet, it's calm, but it's real. Detachment is not about ignoring women or withholding affection. It's about being centered in your masculine frame, so you're not knocked off balance by how someone else feels about you. You don't get rattled when she's distant. You don't overcompensate when she pulls back. You don't chase after breadcrumbs. You observe. You let things unfold. You remain calm in the storm, and that calmness is what separates you from the rest. That kind of energy is rare in today's world. Most people are reactive. They respond to text instantly, overthink silence, and base their mood on whether someone likes them back. A detached man doesn't move like that. He operates from a place of abundance. He knows his value. He knows that he brings something to the table that can't be found anywhere else. His presence, his leadership, his clarity, his protection, his peace. So he doesn't force anything. He allows energy to match his. And if it doesn't, he lets it go. That's why detachment is power. It keeps a man in control of himself. And self-control is magnetic. It shows discipline, and discipline is attractive. It shows maturity, and maturity creates safety. A woman wants to feel like the man she's dealing with isn't emotionally fragile or dependent on her for a sense of worth. She wants to feel chosen, but she also wants to feel like she earned that spot in his life. Detachment makes her feel that, because when you're detached, you're selective. You're not choosing out of loneliness, you're choosing from overflow. This doesn't mean you don't feel or love. It means your love isn't reactive, it's intentional. You're not chasing, you're attracting. You're not begging, you're building. You're not moving fast, you're watching closely. And in doing that, you create space for someone to meet you where you are instead of you constantly lowering your frequency to meet them where they are. That's where the power lies, in the ability to remain high value regardless of who walks in or out. Women are extremely attracted to this kind of man because he represents safety without control, power without arrogance, love without attachment. He represents someone who can offer emotional depth but doesn't drown in it. He can hold space for her feelings without getting lost in them. He can walk beside her but never behind her. In a world full of noise, detachment is silence. In a world full of desperation, detachment is discipline. In a world full of reaction, detachment is control. And in that stillness, in that silence, in that restraint, that's where the real power is. It's not what you chase, it's what you attract by who you are. And when who you are is rooted in peace, purpose, and presence, everything, including women, starts chasing you. Focus over feelings is one of the clearest markers of masculine strength. A man who leads with focus over his emotions commands a different level of respect and attraction. It's not that he doesn't feel, it's that he doesn't let feelings derail his mission. Women, whether they realize it consciously or not, are naturally drawn to men who move with purpose, who wake up every day chasing a vision that's bigger than validation or attention. When a man puts his mission above emotional impulses, he becomes solid, centered, and rare. That's what draws women in. The man who's locked in, not the one who's always available. Most men today are emotionally led. They feel attraction and suddenly their focus is gone. They start skipping workouts, neglecting their business, changing their schedule just to accommodate her. That sends a message: you are more important than my purpose. And once that message is received, the dynamic starts to shift. Women don't lose interest because they're cruel or ungrateful. They lose interest because the energy that once attracted them has changed. You went from being the man who was in his lane, building something, to being the man who's now orbiting around her world. That shift kills polarity. The masculine thrives in direction. The feminine thrives in emotion. The moment the masculine starts moving emotionally, the tension disappears, and so does the attraction. When a man prioritizes focus, he becomes unavailable in a powerful way. Not because he's ghosting or playing games, but because his time is consumed by something greater than chasing temporary pleasure. He's got deadlines, discipline, and standards. That energy creates mystery. It forces people, especially women, to earn their spot in his life instead of being given access without merit. And the more he stays focused, the more he becomes attractive, because he's not reacting to every feeling that comes his way. He chooses, he decides, he leads. Feelings are temporary. Focus builds legacy. A man who lets his emotions run his life ends up in cycles. Hot one day, cold the next, confident in one moment, insecure the next. That inconsistency makes him unreliable, and unreliability kills attraction fast. A focused man, on the other hand, is steady. He may feel doubt, insecurity, or desire, but he doesn't let those things pull him away from what matters most. That emotional discipline creates trust, and trust, especially in the dynamic between masculine and feminine energy, is what allows a woman to relax, open up, and connect. She knows this man won't break under pressure. She knows he won't be swayed by every emotion that hits. That gives her the freedom to be in her feminine, expressive, emotional, vulnerable, because he's grounded enough to hold it all without getting lost in it. Focus over feelings doesn't mean a man suppresses his emotions. It means he doesn't act on every impulse. He observes, he processes, and then he decides based on vision, not emotion. When he applies this mindset to relationships, it changes the entire dynamic. He no longer reacts out of fear when she pulls back. He doesn't chase validation when things get quiet. He doesn't panic when there's space. He stays committed to his path. And in that commitment, he becomes deeply attractive. Because women are drawn to the man who leads, not the man who follows his feelings wherever they go. A man who puts focus first also respects his own time and energy. He doesn't give it away cheaply. He understands that his goals are tied to his habits, and his habits are tied to how he spends every hour. So even in the context of love and connection, he's selective. He doesn't let every woman into his world. He looks at character, values, consistency, not just chemistry. And when he does decide to build with someone, he doesn't lose himself in the process. He keeps showing up for himself every day. That's what keeps the relationship alive, not just the emotional highs, but the presence of a man who refuses to abandon his mission. That's why focus is so powerful. It anchors the masculine, it creates consistency, it builds a foundation that everything else can rest on. Feelings come and go, but purpose gives direction. And when a man is led by purpose, he naturally becomes more attractive, more magnetic, and more respected. Not just by women, but by the world. Scarcity creates value. This is a universal law that applies to everything in life, from economics to human attraction. When something is rare, people desire it more. When something is easily accessible or always available, people naturally begin to take it for granted. The same principle applies to men in relationships and dating. When a man is always emotionally available, constantly seeking attention or validation, and overly eager to please, his energy becomes common. There's no mystery, no tension, no space for longing to build. But when a man detaches, when he's not always available, when his time and energy are guarded, not in a manipulative way, but in a purposeful way, he becomes scarce. That scarcity increases his perceived value. This isn't about playing hard to get for the sake of ego or control. It's about understanding your worth and moving in a way that reflects it. When you give too much too soon, especially emotionally, you remove the natural process of earning each other's trust and investment. A man who is always emotionally present, texting nonstop, oversharing, or making himself constantly accessible removes the challenge, and without challenge, desire fades. The feminine energy seeks a balance between closeness and distance. When things are too close, too fast, without time to build, the dynamic collapses into boredom or suffocation. But when a man knows how to pull back, to focus on himself, to allow space, he creates tension, the good kind, the kind that makes her wonder, lean in, and pursue. Women are drawn to men who are selective with their energy. It's not just about physical availability, it's about emotional discipline. When a man is detached, he is not emotionally needy. He's not chasing, he's not performing for attention, he's simply grounded in himself. That presence paired with restraint creates a sense of unpredictability. And unpredictability breeds excitement. That excitement is what makes a woman think about him when he's not around. It's what makes her check her phone, wonder what he's doing, crave his attention. That energy only exists when she doesn't feel like she already has him entirely. The moment a woman feels like she has full access to a man who hasn't yet fully earned her trust, something shifts in her. She might still like him, but she no longer feels the same desire to chase or impress him. His presence stops feeling earned. It starts feeling given. Scarcity in this context is not about being cold or dismissive. It's about boundaries. A man who is detached respects his own space, his goals, and his time. He doesn't interrupt his flow every time someone calls. He doesn't drop everything for people who haven't proven themselves. He is kind, but he is not eager. He is present, but he is not clingy. And that boundary creates value, sends a signal that his life is full, that he's fulfilled on his own, and that anyone who wants to be part of it must bring something real. That's the kind of energy that makes people step up. When you give less, you force people to give more if they want to be part of your world. It's a psychological pattern that's deeply wired. Human beings assign more value to things that are harder to obtain. That's why limited edition items sell for more. That's why we chase dreams instead of things we already have. In relationships, when something or someone is rare, our brain assigns it more value. A detached man is not detached because he's emotionally stunted. He's detached because he understands how quickly value can erode when there's overexposure. He's intentional. He lets people miss him. He allows silence. He doesn't rush in to fix every gap in communication. And in that silence, something powerful happens. Curiosity builds. Curiosity turns into attraction. Attraction turns into pursuit. Most men today give too much too early out of fear. They think being constantly available will prove their worth, but it usually does the opposite. Women respect what they have to earn. They cherish what feels exclusive. They remember the men who weren't always accessible because those men stood out. Those men made them work. Not through manipulation, but by simply having a full life that didn't revolve around the woman. That's what makes a man stand apart. That's what makes him rare. And the rare always carries more value. Confidence and solitude is one of the most underrated yet powerful traits a man can develop. In a world where distraction is constant and people seek validation through noise, the ability to be alone, truly alone, without feeling lacking, is a reflection of deep internal strength. A man who is comfortable in solitude carries an energy that is unmistakable. He's not rushing to fill the silence. He's not afraid of being with his thoughts. He's not seeking emotional crutches in other people. That calmness, that inner peace makes him magnetic. Women can feel it. It's not about arrogance or bravado. It's the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need anyone to complete him because he is already whole. When a man needs to constantly be around others to feel good about himself, that dependence shows. It leaks into how he communicates, how he moves, and how he connects. His energy starts to feel needy, not grounded. He texts too often, tries too hard, and overextends himself just to keep someone around. That's not attractive. It puts pressure on the other person to provide a sense of security that should have been built internally. But a man who's confident in solitude never makes someone else responsible for his emotional stability. He brings peace, not pressure. And peace is irresistible. Being alone allows a man to refine himself. It forces him to sit with his weaknesses, insecurities, and thoughts without distraction. That kind of self-awareness is rare. When a man has been through that process, when he's wrestled with his own mind and come out stronger, he no longer needs noise or approval. He moves differently. He listens more. He speaks less. He doesn't rush. He understands that presence is more powerful than performance. That stillness, that comfort in his own company becomes a foundation that others naturally want to be part of. Women notice when a man is not afraid of silence. They notice when he doesn't need to fill every gap in conversation, when he can sit still without anxiety, when he can go hours or days without texting and still be unaffected. That's not coldness, it's security. That kind of detachment doesn't come from playing games, it comes from doing the work. Solitude teaches you discipline. It teaches you how to rely on your own thoughts and instincts. And when you've developed that, people can feel it. You no longer seek connection out of desperation. You choose it from a place of strength. That choice makes your energy cleaner, more attractive, more rare. Most men fear being alone because they equate it with being unwanted. But true solitude isn't loneliness, it's alignment. It's knowing that your value doesn't rise or fall based on someone else's presence. A man who's confident in solitude knows that he's the source of his own peace. So he doesn't chase people to avoid emptiness. He doesn't need constant attention or affection to feel good. That creates freedom. It allows him to connect with women from a space of authenticity, not lack. He's not chasing love to feel whole. He's already whole. And that wholeness draws people in. This kind of man doesn't rush into relationships. He moves slowly, intentionally. He evaluates whether someone fits into his world, not just whether he fits into theirs. Because he's not afraid to be alone, he never settles. He's not emotionally impulsive. He doesn't tolerate drama or confusion because he values his peace more than he values temporary connection. That level of emotional discipline sets a high standard and women respect it. They see that he's different not because he says so, but because he lives it. His time alone has made him sharper, more aware, more self-sufficient, and that independence becomes a quiet challenge. It makes women want to step up to meet him where he is. Confidence in solitude also protects a man from being manipulated. When he's not afraid of being left, he won't fold under pressure. He won't be baited by emotional games or threats of withdrawal. He's not operating from fear. He's grounded in his values. He's built himself brick by brick, and he's not going to let someone knock it down just because they're uncomfortable with his standards. That kind of strength doesn't come from noise. It comes from silence. It comes from walking alone and not shrinking in the process. It comes from mastering the art of being good without needing anything outside of yourself. That's what makes a man untouchable. That's what makes him deeply, quietly, undeniably attractive. Masculine energy is grounded. It doesn't move with the wind, doesn't bend with every emotion, it doesn't chase chaos, it stands firm. A man embodying true masculine energy holds his center, no matter what's happening around him. He's steady when things get emotional, calm when things get confusing, and present when others are lost in anxiety or neediness. That groundedness isn't just about controlling emotions, it's about mastering them. It's about developing an internal compass that doesn't rely on external validation. That energy isn't loud or boastful, it's silent, still, and solid. And women feel it immediately. They're drawn to it because it represents safety and leadership, even if they can't always articulate why. In relationships, the polarity between masculine and feminine energy creates attraction. The feminine flows, it's emotional, expressive, changeable. It seeks connection and wants to be felt, understood, and held. The masculine, on the other hand, is the container. It doesn't get pulled into the storm. It provides the foundation beneath it. When a man is grounded, he doesn't get triggered by every mood swing. He doesn't need constant reassurance, and he doesn't react with insecurity or desperation. He listens, observes, and responds. He remains calm, not to prove anything, but because he's already stable within himself. Women instinctively trust and respect a man who can hold his ground when emotions rise. That doesn't mean he ignores her feelings. It means he doesn't collapse under them. He can sit in discomfort without trying to fix or run. He can hear her vent, cry, or be upset and not take it personally. He doesn't try to dominate or control her emotions. He lets them pass like waves because he knows they're temporary. That ability to stay calm and present even when emotions are high builds deep attraction. It's rare, and because it's rare, it's powerful. Most men today are reactive. They mistake emotional availability for emotional instability. They try to be open, but end up getting pulled into every shift in mood, every argument, every moment of silence. They abandon their center trying to accommodate someone else's emotional world. That's not masculine energy. That's emotional fusion. A grounded man doesn't do that. He stays in his lane. He understands her emotions are hers to feel, and his role is to remain present. Not fix, not chase, not panic. This type of energy can't be faked. A man can't pretend to be grounded if he's not. Women can sense when it's an act. True grounded masculine energy is built through discipline, self-respect, and silence. It's developed through doing the hard work alone, through building a purpose, saying no when it's uncomfortable, walking away from drama, and choosing peace over chaos. It's a man who faces fears, who doesn't avoid confrontation, and who knows when to walk away from things that disturb his inner balance. That kind of internal strength radiates outward. It's not what he says, it's how he moves, how he breathes, how he holds space without flinching. Grounded masculine energy also sets the tone. It creates the emotional atmosphere in a relationship. When a man is grounded, the woman can relax. She doesn't have to manage his feelings or tiptoe around his insecurities. She can be more feminine, open, expressive, free, because he's not competing with her emotionally. He's not trying to out-feel her, out-react her, or out-drama her. He lets her be who she is without being destabilized by it. That allows a deeper emotional connection to form, not through chaos, but through contrast. The masculine provides structure, and the feminine flows within it. When that balance is real, the relationship becomes magnetic. This type of energy is especially attractive because it's consistent. It doesn't fade when the honeymoon stage ends. It doesn't collapse under tension. It doesn't turn needy when affection slows down. A grounded man is still the same man, calm, consistent, self-respecting, regardless of what the relationship is doing. That stability builds deep trust. It creates long-term attraction because the woman knows she's not just dealing with a man who's sweet when things are easy, but solid when things get hard. Ultimately, being grounded is about emotional leadership. It's about leading yourself so well that others feel safe around you. It's about choosing logic over impulse, clarity over chaos, and boundaries over desperation. That's what masculine energy looks like when it's fully developed. It doesn't chase, it doesn't beg, it doesn't break. It stands tall, listens deeply, and moves with intention. And that's exactly why it attracts, because it's not trying to. High standards require boundary. There's a truth every man must understand if he wants to be respected, not just by women, but by himself. A man who claims to have standards but allows them to be crossed without consequence doesn't really have standards at all. He has preferences, not principles, and women can tell the difference instantly. What makes a man attractive isn't just what he desires, it's what he's willing to walk away from. That's the true test of value. A man who is detached not because he's cold, but because he respects himself will never cling to what doesn't serve him. That quiet refusal to tolerate disrespect, games, or low effort behavior speaks volumes often louder than words ever could. Boundaries aren't about controlling other people. They're about controlling yourself. They define what you allow into your life and what you immediately reject. When a man has strong boundaries, he doesn't argue about his worth. He doesn't try to prove himself. He doesn't explain himself repeatedly. He simply makes a decision and follows through. That type of energy is rare, especially in a world where most people tolerate more than they should out of fear of being alone. But the man with boundaries doesn't fear solitude. He understands that being alone with dignity is better than being surrounded with disrespect. Women respect the man who moves with boundaries because it signals leadership. It shows she can't just slide in and run the show with emotions, games, or manipulation. He sees through it. He doesn't fall for pressure. And when a woman sees that a man can't be easily shaken, she naturally leans in, not because she's being controlled, but because she's being led. There's a big difference between a man who is emotionally detached due to fear and one who is detached due to strength. The former runs away to protect himself. The latter stands firm because he knows who he is. That self-awareness creates a gravitational pull. When a man has high standards, he doesn't lower them just because he's physically attracted to someone. He doesn't overlook red flags because the chemistry is strong. He doesn't accept disrespect because he's scared to lose the connection. Instead, he treats his energy like a kingdom with walls, gates, and access codes. Not everyone gets in, not everyone deserves to. That sense of discipline is what makes a woman pay attention. It makes her see that your time, your presence, your attention, those are earned. And when something is earned, it's valued more. Too often, men confuse being kind with being soft. They think saying yes to everything will make them more likable. They believe that being available at all times shows commitment, but in reality, it shows a lack of backbone. And the second a woman senses that, attraction begins to fade. She might not say it out loud, but her energy shifts. She stops putting in effort. She stops respecting the man's leadership, all because his actions revealed that his standards were flexible. But boundaries are not flexible. They're consistent. They don't move depending on who's asking. They stand tall even when it's inconvenient. That's what makes a man's energy clean. When he says no, it means no. When he sees behavior that doesn't align with his values, he calls it out or he walks away. And when he commits, it's because the other person has shown through actions, not just words, that they are worthy of his time. That clarity creates security. It makes a woman feel like she's with someone who won't tolerate nonsense, which in turn inspires her to show up with her best. It elevates the connection, not because of pressure, but because of presence. A man with boundaries forces everyone around him to rise or fall, and if they fall, he doesn't chase them, he lets them go. People treat you based on what you tolerate. If you let someone disrespect you once and you stay silent, you've silently agreed to more of it. If you overextend yourself and get nothing in return, and yet you keep doing it, you've shown that you don't value yourself enough to demand reciprocity. When you make it clear through actions that your standards are non-negotiable, you don't need to say much. Your energy speaks for you. You attract differently. You move differently. And that difference is what draws women in. Not because you're withholding, but because you know your worth. A man with high standards and firm boundaries doesn't fear rejection. He knows that anything real can't be lost by standing firm, and anything that's lost wasn't solid to begin with. That's the mindset of someone who's not led by fear, but by principle. And that mindset is magnetic. It's rare, it's powerful, it turns a man into a standard, not an option. So here's what it all comes down to. Detachment isn't distance, it's discipline. It's not about being cold, emotionless, or unavailable. It's about being in control of your energy, your time, and your focus. Women are extremely attracted to men who don't move out of fear, but out of purpose, who don't react, but respond, who don't chase, but choose. Because that kind of man doesn't lose himself in anyone. He builds himself regardless of who stays or goes. In a world full of noise, neediness, and emotional chaos, the man who stands firm, who leads himself before he leads anyone else, becomes the rare one. The one who doesn't need to prove his value because his life already reflects it. His presence speaks, even when he's silent. You want to be the man she respects, admires, and is drawn to on a soul deep level, then stop reaching and start rising. Build your mission, keep your standards, hold your boundaries, get comfortable in solitude, and most of all, stay grounded in who you are no matter who's watching. Because the second you master detachment, you stop chasing the world and you start attracting everything that was meant for you.